Here's an idea of what to do with gemstones that are drilled or undrilled. So these beautiful gemstones come from Chalmers Gems, and I've got a little bit of a wood there that I can use, and I've got these cages that are ready-made. You can make your own, and all these gorgeous assorted gemstones. So I want to show you what I would do with, so I'm going to drill 3 holes in my little bit of driftwood, and then I'm going to use 1.6 mil. This is aluminium wire, but you can use silver plated copper. Any wire will do as long as it's strong enough. And I'm going to thread through the first hole and make a wrapped link. So that's I'm using my bail makers, but you can use your round nose pliers, you can use anything to wrap around to make a loop, and then bring the excess wire and wrap it just under the loop so that it can't slide off. So that's really what you want to do, and I'm just going to cut off a length so I can make links on each side. So this is going to be the link that I can suspend the whole of my hanger from. So wrapped link at the top that can't sort of make its way through the wood. So I mean, if you don't have driftwood, you might be able to get sort of a bamboo from the garden and drill through, or you can just also hang it off a ribbon, or make your own sort of hanger out of wire. So there's no definite ways of doing this. It's just up to you what you've got to hand, but I'm hoping this gives you some ideas and inspiration to create your own versions. So I'm making another wrap link, the opposite end of the little wood, the piece of driftwood, and that means both links are secured in place. One will have the hanging decoration of my gemstone, and the other will be where I can put my string or ribbon or wherever I'm going to hang it from. So I've got to do that. The next one along, don't need a top hanger actually for, I only need the last one as a top hanger. So this one, I post it through, if it fits, yeah. And then I'm going to make a little spiral that will flatten against the top of the wood. So it just acts as a head pin really. So I'm going to bend that to a right angle so that it will sit against the wood, just flatten it and make it sit so you can't sort of see it. And then I can put my link, it hooks it in place, and put my link at the opposite end. Because I'm going to do 3 rows of hanging rows. You could do 2, you could do 1. Again, these things are all fluid. There's no rules in these creative things, so please don't think that you have to purchase what I've purchased. You can sort of just get the inspiration and use this idea to fuel your own creativity. So that's the middle one, and then we need another one exactly the same on the opposite side on your last drilled hole. So the next thing to do is these little cages. As I say, we can make our own cages, but I really like these cages from Chalmers Gems. You can just pop your bead, your gemstones in. These are tumble stones, so any tumble stones, or if you have little, I don't know, bits for you've gone on holiday and you've picked up from the beach, and they could just be pebbles. Some of them might be too big, so you've got to see the shape. Now I'm just going to show you this sort of shape. It would fit if it had a bit more of a pointy end, but you can see, you can pull those wires up around it, but because they're quite springy, you might find it just doesn't work. So something like that is too thin and it just won't work. You've got to find a bit more of a nuggety or a smaller piece that fits in. So have a look at your gemstone collection, or have a look at your tumble stones, or little bits of sea glass, whatever you have that just doesn't have a drilled hole and you want to, put in these cages to suspend. And ultimately they can be necklaces as well. So the other thing I'm using is these Rose Quartz beautiful carved rose quartz hearts. So these are beads in essence. So all I need to do is create a link at one end with my round nose pliers and a link at the opposite end. So those can be used as well. And I've got another beautiful flower agate teardrop bead. And I'm going to use that because it sort of blends so well with all the colour scheme that I'm using, this sort of neutral colour scheme. So that's top drilled. So I just feed the wire through. This is 0.8 of a millimetre, and I'm going to put the shorter end and wrap it around the stem wire that I've sort of centered coming from the top. And so that's going to be my main stem wire that I'm going to put my top link on. So you wrap around to secure the two wires together, make sure that's held in place, and you might not want to use all of it, so just cut off a little bit. I don't know if you can hear meowing in the back, but my cat is my cat is making a noise. So if you hear that, that's all it is. And then straighten that out, so we might put a top bead on that. So now we've got everything ready and in place. There'll be one more thing. If you want to link one of these cages to something else, you can thread them down the back or the middle with a piece of 0.8 silver plated wire. So you see I've done a double link there, and when I pull it through, it won't go through the whole cage. And then do another link at the opposite end, and that means, because it's only got a link at one end, it will mean that you can suspend it, you know, in the middle of something and have something hanging from it. So I just wanted to show you that, because these cages, as I say, can only be linked from one, the top end only. So now I'm just going to play around with how I'm going to position everything and which bit is going to go where. And I will also use some chain links in between. I think I'm going to make them out of 1.6 mil because it's nice and sturdy, especially when I hammer it. So I've got some aluminium 1.6 mil, and first of all I'm going to make some S links. So I'm going to make a circle at the end, and then bring my bail makers, and they could be my round nose pliers depending on the size you want to make, and bring that in the opposite direction and curl it around, and there you have got a figure of 8, or an eternity link as some people like to call them. So I'm going to make lots of those. And my other linking system, I'm going to make some spirals. So you've seen me make spirals, I'm sure, many times, but you make a little circle and then hold that circle and curl the wire round and round and round, and make them as big as you want them to make them. That's completely up to you. So I'm going to sort of make it in sort of keeping with the rest of the size of my units and pieces. And then place your round nose pliers on the working wire, bring it completely around so it crosses over itself. Then hold it there and bring it again around the edge of the spiral so that it goes past where I want to make the next link, because I want to leave enough then to create a link at the opposite end with my round nose pliers, so that that link sits completely opposite and adjacent to the top link. So I've got a base link and a top link on my spiral, and that means I can, you know, link from one end to the other, because I want to have a sort of continuous chain coming down these sort of 3 rows from my driftwood. Now I've got to just work hard on those a little bit, so I'm just going to go to the top end of my unit, give them a little bit of a bash, and that way they are much sturdier and they won't open up. So I'll work on those a little bit, get those nice and sturdy, and lastly I will need jump rings to connect everything together. So I've got a coil of jump rings here that I've made earlier, and I'm just going to cut through and make each of the little links. So you just take from the last cut end, cut to the next one up, and then we're going to put the whole thing together. So there we have it. I've just put in this order, and you can see it clearly there, how I've linked everything together. to suspend from the 3 rows, and then all I need to do is connect some string or ribbon, whatever you want to use as a connector. I've got some string, it's sort of in keeping with my driftwood, I felt a bit rustic. Put a couple of little knots, tighten that up, and I'll obviously cut off the excess in a minute, and then you decide how long you want to have this loop at the top, depending where you're going to hang it from, and do another couple of knots on the other side. So very, very simple. And then you just need to neaten up those ends. So cut off with the scissors. If you want to put a bit of glue on those knots, by all means do, to make sure they're held really firmly in place. But that's the idea, and I hope you can create a similar sort of thing with that inspiration. Many thanks for watching, and do go and check out Charmers Gems.